Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is BK International Talent Scout. Today, I'm doing a special show called 15 Things You Don't Do When Grieving Loss. 15 things you don't do when you're grieving loss. That means grieving the loss of a loved one, grieving the loss of your boyfriend or girlfriend, grieving a loss in a business relationship, grieving a loss in a personal relationship. And also, we want to talk about pastors that are grieving a loss of their members. People in church go through so many of the grief process. You would think, okay, I'm talking about someone that passed away. No, we're talking about somebody that left your church. The church is grieving, the first lady is grieving, and the pastor is grieving your loss. Grieving the loss of someone. But before we get into 15 things you don't do in grieving a loss, I want to talk about BK Presents has a couple of special announcements coming up next month. I can't let it out the bag just yet, but a lot of people have been requesting for the BK Presents radio podcast on Rainier Avenue Radio. They've been wanting us to go live. So we're going to have some announcements about that closer to the end of the month. As you know, BK Presents radio podcast is aired on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. My show is premiered on Sundays at 8 a.m. They play another one of my shows at 9:30 a.m. And then they play another show at 12:30 p.m. So they play 3 different shows of BK Presents on Sunday morning, Faith and Praise on Rainier Avenue Radio. Then on Tuesdays, they air my show at 10:30 a.m. And then on Fridays, they air my show at 9 a.m. So you have 5 times to hear BK Presents Radio Podcast aired on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. There is a special event coming up, you guys. Washington State chapter of the GMWA has a luncheon coming up called Attitude. It's their luncheon they do every year. So you wear your hat with an attitude. They will have a delicious luncheon, special guest artists, raffle, table auction, and door prizes. This year, the luncheon will be on Saturday, June 27th at 1 p.m. and it's located at St. Teresa Parish Social Hall in Seattle, Washington. The address is 935th Avenue, Seattle, Washington, 98122. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. It's your chance to show off one of your awesome hats. The tables will be decked out with a beautiful hat and all the accessories that go with it. The highest bid takes it all home. Last year, I attended this event with my auntie Carol. It was so fun. So I'm hoping Auntie Carol invites me back to this event. And it was such an exciting. So the Attitude Luncheon for 2026 is Saturday, June 27th at 1 p.m. Here's the cool thing, guys. I'm going to be interviewing Joanne Moore, who's an assistant rep for the Washington State chapter of the GMWA. I will be interviewing her on my radio show this Thursday. BK Presents on RainierAvenueRadio.com. Hey, so I'm excited about interviewing Joanne. She's a good friend of mine, a good friend of the family, and she's going to be talking about this special event, but she's also just going to be talking about who she is and what church she grew up in. She was a part of the Total Experience Gospel Choir. She was a part of Alfred Taylor's community choir. So she's going to be talking about her gospel music experience in the Pacific Northwest. She's going to be talking about traveling to the National Convention of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. She usually travels with her good friend Zena Jordan. So hey, tune in to my show, or we'll give you more information about that interview. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to 15 things you don't do when you're grieving a loss. Grieving the loss of a loved one, grieving the loss of a spouse, grieving the loss of a friend, grieving a loss of a job, grieving a loss of a spiritual friend or close friend, whether you had a relationship with them or whether you were just friends, right? Loss is so important. There's 15 things you don't want to do when you're grieving loss. So, below are a few tips you don't want to do when you're grieving the death of someone or the loss of someone that you love. You are going through difficult times. Embrace your feelings of grief in healthy ways so that in your own time, you can move forward with hope and healing. So here are the things you don't do. Don't avoid your pain and refuse to allow yourself to grieve. That goes for pastors, churches, church leaders. When a member leaves your church, the whole church is going through a lot. So the whole church has to embrace the pain. Don't live in the past. Sometimes we get stuck living in the past. Get stuck on memories of the past. Here's one. I'm going to read it. Ideal person or previous situation. Don't try to meet new people and put the old pain on the new people that come into your life. Don't refuse to make the necessary changes to move forward. Don't refuse to make the necessary changes to move forward. Sometimes when you're grieving a loss of a loved one or a friend or a special friend, you refuse to make the necessary changes to move forward. What do those changes look like for you? That's something that you want to pray about and think about. Don't dwell in self-pity, but allow yourself to feel pain while also making efforts to make healthy steps to healing. So while you are embracing your pain, you also need to make healthy choices and make healthy steps toward dealing with your grief and loss and get back on the road of healing. Don't lose respect for your own body, your own mind, your own spirit, your own insight. Listen at this. Don't lose respect for yourself and don't lose respect for others. Remember to take care of your physical body, your mental body, your spiritual body, and your financial body. Simple things that you could do by washing, having healthy eating habits, drinking ample water, and doing exercises. So when you're going through loss or you see someone going through lost, check in with your family, check in with your friends. Make sure they're doing okay. Make sure they're eating. Make sure they're talking, even though they don't want to talk. Hey, maybe even make sure that they go see a mental health specialist to help you get through their grief or loss. Also, churches and organizations can refer you to grief counselors. This is very important. Make sure they're exercising. Make sure your friend is getting out of the house. Don't remain withdrawn or run away from your feelings. That is like so important. To recognize your feelings, to embrace your feelings, but don't run and hide from your feelings. There are so many broken people that have been through divorce and they're grieving loss. They could be grieving loss 5, 10, 15 years later. So you got to check on your family members that go through relationship breakups, that go through spiritual breakups, that go through financial breakups, that go through business breakups. Man, there's so many things that people are going. There's so many different ways that you can be grieving loss. You can be grieving loss, moving from one place to a new place. You could be grieving loss, moving from one state to a new state. You could be grieving loss, going from one church to a new church. I think pastors probably deal with a lot of loss. When you have one person that was a part of your church, you grew up with them, you were friends, and then they decided to go to another church. So I want to encourage pastors, church leaders, and churches to deal with and to embrace grieving loss when somebody leaves your church. If you are a good church leader, or if you're a part of a great church, you might want to find out, man, why did this person leave my church? Or why did this person leave my business? They don't want to do business with me. Or if you have friends, why did this person, they don't want to hang out with me? They don't want to talk to me. It's loss is serious. And when you go through loss, you want to be careful about the decisions you make. When you go through a breakup, when you go through a divorce, you want to get healthy healing. There are so many people that are gone through a divorce and they never got healthy healing. It is so amazing to know, why is it seems as though, for the most part, guys seem to bounce back quicker, or they cover it up when they go through a breakup or when they go through a divorce. Whereas sometimes it seems like it takes a little longer sometimes for a woman, a sister, a female to overcome that breakup loss. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it's real. And so that's why we're talking about 50 things you don't do when overcoming a loss or you're going through the grieving process. Don't rely on alcohol and or other drugs. Yep, that's right. Well, I don't drink and I've never drank. I've never smoked. I never did weed. I'm a church boy. Don't maintain unrealistic expectations of what friends should offer in comfort. Don't maintain unrealistic expectations of what friends should offer in comfort. That means that number one, you gotta go to counseling. Number two, you might want to communicate and share with your small group or circle of friends about what you're going through. Number three, sometimes it's just you need someone to listen to you. Sometimes you might need someone to walk with you, but you should check on your family and friends. Don't resent friends with, this is interesting. Don't resent friends with intact families. Listen at this one. Don't resent friends with intact families. Sometimes when you're going through a grief, don't resent people that have a good relationship, that go to a good church, that have a good small circle of friends. Don't let resentment to set in. Here's a good one. Don't expect yourself to get over it. You know, you're going through a loss of a loved one. You're going through loss of divorce. You're going through loss of separation in relationship. It's not a situation where you can just get over it, right? You're going to have to take some steps. You're going to have to get support. You're going to have to be open and honest and real about how you feel, what road you're going to overcome, or what road you're going to take to overcome the anguish and the grieving loss of your loved one, of your boyfriend, your girlfriend, the grieving loss through relationships, whether it's a spiritual relationship. Also, here's the one that is really serious. Grieving the loss when someone leaves your church and goes to another church. Why am I talking about it? Because it happens every month. So pastors are going through, these pastors are going through grief and loss, choir directors, musicians, family, and friends. But just because someone goes to another church doesn't mean they want to lose relationships. Don't guilt over good days. So as you go through your life, you may have some good days and you may have some bad days. Don't cross bridges before you get to them instead of taking one day at a time. When you're going through the grieving process, you are taking one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and sometimes one moment at a time. Don't condemn yourself. Don't put yourself down. Don't underestimate yourself when you're going through the grieving process. Don't get involved in a serious relationship because before you are ready. Listen at this. Here's the one. Don't get involved in a serious relationship before you're really ready. If you lost a significant other, man, let's talk about it. If you're going through a divorce, after you go through a divorce, don't just jump into another relationship. If you're breaking up with somebody in a significant relationship, don't just jump into another relationship so you don't embrace the full grieving loss. And then there's people that are divorced and been divorced. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They are still grieving loss by the way they handle relationships. So you have to have people check in with professionals to get healthy healings so that you can have a healthy relationship after divorce, so that you can have healthy relationship after the breakup. Let me read this again. Don't get involved in a serious relationship before you're really ready. Don't get involved in another serious relationship until you are working on the road to recovery. You are seeing a professional to get all this pain, all this anger, all this shame out of your system. And it means a significant other, your boyfriend. People grieve loss over their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their significant other breakup. Not just the husband-wife breakup, but there's spiritual breakups where you're walking with a brother, walking with a spiritual sister, and you guys come into a disagreement about handling the situation. And then someone said, hey, I don't want to be your friend no more. I don't want to be your sister no more. I don't want to be your brother no more. This happens in the church as well as in the community where people say, I don't want to talk to you no more. Are you walking down the road being friends with somebody your whole life and, oh, I don't want to talk to you no more? Man, that's just as bad as someone passing away. It could be worse. Because Seattle and Tacoma's too small. You're gonna run into that person in church. You're gonna run into that person in community. And then what are you gonna do when you see the person that you're not talking to? What are you gonna do when you see the person that you have broken up with? It's something to think about. So 15 things you don't do when grieving loss. You don't avoid the pain. You don't refuse to allow yourself to grieve. You gotta go through the whole grieving process. Why am I doing this show? Because so many people are grieving loss and they end up hurting people that they really love, but they didn't overcome the process of grieving loss after loss after loss. Pastors are grieving loss after loss after loss. Community leaders are grieving loss after loss after loss. This happens in the business community. You could be doing business with somebody 5-10 years. You have a successful business brand. You have a successful business concept. Everybody's doing well. Everybody's making money, and then somebody decides to break that relationship. Hey everybody, I've completed my show, 15 ways or 15 things you don't do overcoming loss. Again, coming up June 27th, Attitude Luncheon presented by the Washington State Chapter TMWA. All right, everybody, as you can know, you can hear my show on Sundays on RainierAvenueRadio.world at 8 a.m., at 9:30 a.m., and 12:30 p.m. And as you know, I'm looking to interview people on BK Presents. I do my shows on Thursday at the historic Columbia City Theater in the Rainier Avenue Radio podcast studios. I do all my shows there. And also remember, we're going to be making a special announcement because next month, BK Presents Radio Podcast will be going live. All right? So details are being worked out. You'll hear official announcement. Thanks for listening to my show, 15 Things You Don't Do When Going Through the Grieving Process. Hey, share this show with your family and friends. It might help someone you really love.